We have talked about implementation, about the whole idea of intelligent assistant, spelled NTS, spelled NCE at the end. And I think we've had some discussions grounded in what's possible now and where things are moving into the future. But we put together some visionaries here, just with the idea of discussing, what happens when you blow the doors off, and you just sort of extrapolate from how things are moving. We've talked business cases. I was amazed with the Windstream discussion about, hey, it doesn't cost more and it saves money and you get up and operating and you're answering questions, but there's so much more going on. So I'm going to ask each member of the panel to sort of give a brief introduction and describe who they work for, what they're working on, and then same routine. I have a couple of canned questions, but this is a real interactive session, and we can define the future of intelligent assistance here. Nobody else is doing it. So, start with Tim.
I'm Tim Tuttle. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Expect Labs. We're a technology company, and our product is a developer platform that lets any company create a really awesome voice-driven interface for their app, their device, their website. It's called MindMeld.
And that's a really fast elevator.
My name is Liesl Capper. I'm actually the leader of Watson Life Product Strategy. I have a very long background in this field. I actually founded and was CEO of Cognia, which was formerly called My Cyber Twin. So we actually launched a consumer personal assistant about 8 years ago, and we moved into big end of enterprise. So we were doing a lot of enterprise customer support. You can hear my accent. We were doing a lot of work in Asia Pacific area. And we were basically a platform play. We were looking at dynamic personalization and able to move into multiple environments really rapidly. Prior to that, I actually founded a predictive personalization search engine company, which I listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. So just joined IBM. My company was acquired about a couple of months ago. I don't even have business cards yet.
My name is Roberto Pieraccini. As you may guess from my name and my accent, I am actually Scottish.
About to declare independence. Way to go.
So yeah, I've been in India. I've been building machines that understand speech for too long. I started in 1981, when probably some of you were in kindergarten. I've been switching between academic, advanced research, and commercial technology many times in my life. I worked for research center in Italy, and then Bell Labs, AT&T Labs, IBM, TJ Watson, and I also worked for SpeechWorks, which was one of the precursors on Nuance. I was the CTO of Speech Cycler, building very sophisticated dialogue systems, and now I am in charge of the Advanced Conversational Technology for something called Jibo. Who knows what Jibo is? Raise your hand. Okay, good. So Jibo is the first robot for the home. We concluded yesterday a very successful crowdfunding campaign. We closed with on Indiegogo with $2,280,000. It's the most successful technology campaign ever on Indiegogo. And now we have to build it and deliver it, which is the fun part. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. Dan.
Okay. Very good.
Hi, I'm Mark Yahiro. I work at Intel. I recently joined, not 2 months, but about 4 years ago. Many startups at Intel. What I'm responsible for are all of our strategic business development deals in our perceptual computing space. We just branded it called RealSense, and what that is really looking at kind of how we interact with our devices in a hopefully much more natural, intuitive, and immersive way. So this is looking at 3D technologies, voice technologies, emotion, biometrics, et cetera. Prior to Intel, I was actually CEO of another startup that actually did avatar chat, and that was way back in the .com days, if you remember that.
Hey, it's coming back.
So anyway, those are quick background, but love the interactions. Our goal is to really provide a platform across all of our devices, phones, tablets, PCs, that enable a really immersive, natural kind of interaction where we believe voice, speech, and intelligent agents are really critical for the future.
So I want to stay over on your side there, Mark, and because I've always loved the perceptual computing framing, because all of this input from everywhere is what is the grist for the intent mill, for lack of a better word. Are some ahead of others, and we've had a discussion of just what the core technologies are around intelligent assistance, and a bunch of us came out of the speech sort of arena. What's the horse race look like now around natural
Talking
language?
technology in general, or how we see the
Yeah.
speech
Well, I
landscape,
mean-
or overall?
Intelligent assistance, I think if I were going to list them, and we can
Yeah,
make
yeah.
that the first topic of debate, but we've discussed natural language understanding,
Yep.
we've discussed predictive analytics, semantic understanding, all sorts of things. So,
Right.
yeah.
So I think, from our perspective, what we want to do is provide a platform, and we want to work with partners and providers to actually develop that. So what we provide is hopefully a great foundation to start on. And what we found was, with phones are really, really good because you're actually speaking in a phone. But other devices like a PC or even a tablet or a television or a large monitor, the microphones were really inadequate. Okay, so I'll give you an example. About 2 years ago, we looked at all the PCs, and there's a lot of them. And there's only one that actually had dual microphone arrays, and actually they weren't even turned on. That's how good it was, okay? So over the last year and a half, we now have close to 100 designs that actually have sealed dual microphone arrays meeting our specification. That was critical. So we wanted to provide a foundation that allows anyone in pretty much almost any environment to use speech as one input. And there's so much more. So our goal is to provide all the key inputs. So speech is one, looking at emotion, looking at kind of who you are. We have all these different recognizers. We want to give that data. And we want to then work within the cloud, within different intelligent agents to use that data in very predictive, intelligent ways. So I'm not going to say who the leader is because we have different partners, but there's a lot of technologies.
All right. Roberto, is that baked into Jibo? How's he or she?
First of all, Jibo is a he.
Okay, all right.
Internally, it was a company decision internally. We refer to
That did come up in our earlier discussion.
We refer to it as.
But don't
he.
talk to me. Talk to the mic.
Yes. About technology, we believe it's the right time to build a robot. And a robot is just a change of paradigm, pretty much like what Mark said. We're going to deploy on this. We have a few prototypes. I have a couple of them at my apartment, a couple of blocks from here, and we're going to deploy a lot of technologies on this little robot. We have, of course, speech recognition, but speech recognition is such a loose term because there are many flavors of speech recognition. There is command and control, there is natural language, there is phrase spotting, there is grammar-based, there is statistical. So something that we have been really thinking about a lot, and which ones are the best for a robot. Microphone arrays is very important. Jibo is not humanoid. It's a little, look like a chess pawn, like something like that. Yeah. So, but Jibo can rotate. It has 3 degrees of 3 joints, and the joints are 360 degrees. So you can rotate. You can see you as a camera, stereo camera. It knows where you are and how far you are, and also has an array of microphones. So it knows when someone is talking where the source of that sound comes from, and can rotate towards the person who is talking. There is a speaker identification, speaker verification. So he knows who is talking, and if it is one of the person that he knows or he doesn't know, there will be emotion detection, which is a big word, but facial expression detection. So he knows if you're frowning or you're happy, if you're standing or lying down. And there is a display, so you can communicate with you with voice, with a display, and also the whole body of Jibo has touch point. So the display is multi-touch, but the rest of the body you can touch it to give information to Jibo. So this is pretty much the state of the technology that we're deploying.
And then you made a decision not to be human, but human-like. It's
so
anthropomorphize.
The decision. I'm very happy with this decision. If you look, there are 2 trends in robotics. The Japanese trend is to build humanoid robotics very similar to human beings. There is this guy Ishiguro who builds copies of himself, his wife, and his daughter. And they're very creepy, extremely creepy, right? Yeah. And if you look at Pepper, this 4 feet tall humanoid robot with arms, and they're kind of creepy. So it falls in what is called the uncanny valley, so the creepiness valley for robots. So for me, if you ask Cynthia Brazil, the founder of the company, the idea is to be the social robot, that even though it's not humanoid, can express feelings, and you can be attached. Think, for instance, of Disney. Think of it as the teapot in The Beauty and the Beast. It's not humanoid, but you can see the feelings. Even a cube can express feelings. So we are not much into humanoid robots, but we are in creating attachment, bond with the user through emotions.
Yeah. So that addresses some of that. With Liesl, I wanted to talk, so this expressiveness is one thing, but the ability to sort of carry on an ongoing conversation seems to be a challenge as well. And from what I understand, there's some interesting things going on with Watson, whom a lot of people, because of the Jeopardy sort of thing, just think sometimes it's like plays game, answers questions, and that sort of thing. So, what's coming up?
No, it's not just about Q&A. Really what we're trying to do at IBM is address at a kind of very grand IBM kind of scale the fact that a lot of what we're trying to do in this space, we're constrained by the brittleness of systems. So if you build a really effectively a very complex expert system that can handle dialogue or make decisions, there's just a lot of hard wiring in it. And there's only so far you can scale that across data and across functions. So what IBM is doing and actually doing already, it's gone way past Jeopardy. We're actually out there really able to throw a system across any set of data and into pretty much any environment and actually have a meaningful interaction. So it's not just about a single answer to a single question, but the system is actually able to reason through potential responses or potential directions it ought to go based on a sort of known data set of a human being or of a situation. So a great example is we can take 30 or 40 pages of patient notes, throw Watson over millions of medical research articles and come up with a pretty good ranked diagnosis of what's going on. But again, it's not just a Q&A. We're actually working very hard on getting Watson embodied in more environments where he's actually performing interactive tasks. And that's what my sort of piece with Cognia is. We were doing a lot of that work.
Fantastic. And Tim, I think of Expect Labs. I think of predictive sort of stuff. I know MindMeld was a great demo. I don't know how many have seen the, okay.
I saw it.
Mark has. Tim has. Just try to picture Skype video going on between two people, but that along the side, some sort of analytic assistant is throwing up suggestions of what you might find interesting based on the content in real time of what your conversation is. That's kind of what MindMeld is showing. And I like this article you wrote recently about how much of her is possible today. So, where is the anticipatory agent taking us? That's my canned question.
Good question. So my background has been in AI. I studied AI a long time. I was at Bell Labs and MIT. And if you asked me this question a year ago, I would have said, we're a long way off from this intelligent assistant that can listen to your conversation, understand it well enough to provide helpful suggestions. The improvements that I've seen in things like speech recognition, natural language understanding, intelligent search have changed my mind just in the past 18 months. So I think we're not as far off as some people might think we are. I know a lot of us have heard this before. We've seen it in the movies for the past 40 years or so. I'm convinced we're on the precipice, which means you're going to start seeing intelligent voice understanding showing up in many applications, many devices all around you over the next 2 years, 3 years. And I know this because our company is currently building many of them right now for some of the devices and apps that you use every single day. The reason that this change is happening now is twofold. One is we finally live in this world where we are surrounded by hardware devices that have all the sensors needed and have the performance necessary to capture all this voice information and contextual information. So that problem solved. And the second is due to some recent breakthroughs in AI related to deep learning that are now seeing dramatic improvements in the accuracy levels in things like speech recognition and NLU. Just to give you a sense of what the numbers are, in some of the published results for things like core ASR, published by Microsoft and Google, they've demonstrated a 40 to 45% increase in or reduction in word error rate, which is about the level of performance improvements that we've seen in the industry over the past 15 to 20 years. So there is, in my opinion, based on the recent data, I think things like speech rec will be a solved problem. For common languages, common dialects, will be as good as humans are within a couple of years. So that's really exciting.
Or as I like to say, huh?
Yeah, no, so I think this is going to fundamentally change how people interact with devices, going to fundamentally change how you use applications. I know there's a lot of big companies like Intel and Google and Microsoft and Apple are investing heavily in this, and which are going to, and IBM, of course. And it's going to change the way that people develop applications and how we use computing devices. So very exciting time.
Questions, everybody? Oh. Let's start in the back of the room. It looks like Ian.
Thanks. So we heard a lot of great case studies, but the focus of almost all of them was taking cost out of the business first as the metric for success. You're laying out kind of a different future where there are a lot of different use cases beyond that. I heard medical from IBM. I just wondered if you could throw out some. We're blue skying here, right? This is the future.
Absolutely.
So what is the future?
Big blue
What are
sky.
these? How is this going to be instantiated inside of enterprise applications?
Well, we're very much seeing this not just as a single point interaction system like a web chat agent, but as kind of cognitive glue across everything. So, if you're working with an end customer, they may want a particular product or service at a particular point in time, but really they live a life and they don't really care very much about your brand. Their aim is to minimize their time with you and maximize their time to enjoy their life. So we're really doing a lot of thinking and work around how do you really use big data and cognitive computing to understand that human beings' needs and almost predict what it is they want without even an interaction that triggers a chat that deflects a call from a call center. They shouldn't even be calling the call center in the first place. You shouldn't even need the contact to begin with. And that's something that's very interesting for us. But what we're doing at IBM is actually opening up the platform because there have been literally decades and billions of dollars spent on this, and we're figuring we can't do everything we want to do with it. So we're opening it up and letting people play and have a whirl.
More comments on which aspects of our lives or which vertical industries will be affected one before the other?
No, I mean, our drive is more for consumers. I mean, business is a very, very big part of it. I think on the business side, what we see transcription and translation obviously is really big, but the accuracy there is very, very important because if you say yes or no, it's going to be really, really different in terms of what you're going to do. A lot of things that we're seeing, we actually are using Nuance as one of our engines, and we see dictation really being now much more acceptable for consumers. We're just starting to launch that, and we're seeing some pretty interesting early results that when people of all ages, kids are really liking to use it now because they're not afraid of this interaction, and when they actually see real-time dictation, it's almost like a wow experience for them. So we're seeing very kind of new usages, and after that, what's a predictive type of experience they want to see, et cetera. So that's what we're just starting to kick off now. So.
No?
Sure. Question back here.
Over.
So what is the current state of the art with respect to ingesting this kind of data, large volume data, from Watson's perspective? And actually, are data scientists involved? Is it kind of a manual process? Can we replicate it across enterprises? What's the current state of the art? Where are we?
Yeah, so this is the Holy Grail. If you can fuse this sort of very engaging interaction experience of really a quasi-humanoid front end with an automated ingestion process on the back, that's really the Holy Grail that one of the Holy Grails we're working on. So if essentially it is a, there is the approach where it does need to go in an environment, and there's always touch points there that have to be hooked in. But the whole approach of Watson is, we can't picture everything that everyone's going to ever ask. And even if you had 1,000 people asking exactly the same 1,000 question, those are 1,000 different people at different points in time with different needs and different matrices of variables making them up. So you can't, you can scale to handle the sort of Pareto principle, 80-20, you can do that, but you can't really scale into the infinity of all human interaction. So there is, divisions of this where we just did completely automated, we just ingest. We call it ingestion. We just sort of hoover up data and then plop out Watson on the other end. And
There you go.
but there is also that element where it's not just a question and answer. You do need to, people I did psychology a million years ago, and it's not just about who you are and your environment you're in, but the goal state. Where do you want to go as a human being? And I think this is, sorry if I'm rabbiting on too much, but I think this is really important. A lot of what we're hearing about, a lot of the drivers is cost reduction and so forth, but I think it's important for us to all step back at some point, as I'm sure Jibo and Intel and all the others have done, and think about what we're really doing here. We're fundamentally changing the shape of how human beings interact with the outside world. We're putting in there a very, very intuitive, natural, intelligent experience, and it's going to shift society. And it's one of the reasons that I decided to join my company to IBM. At some point, every startup reaches that wall where you have to cross the line and start monetizing. IBM has to do that too, but there's a long horizon, and there's ethics in our DNA. And really thinking about what this means for society, and I'm sure everyone's got an opinion about that too. Sorry, I went off topic a bit there.
I love it. I get a little insight there. Because we chat a little bit about, right now we're calling it an intelligent assistant, or at least at this conference, but, some chats had come up about it evolving from just plain assistants to advisor to advocate. I mean, what role? And it gets virtualized because, right now I think it's on your phone. Then it becomes another wearable. Then it just becomes you.
I mean, what if the KPI is just hanging out with you? What does that mean for your relationships? What does it mean if kids want to spend 3 hours a day with Jibo, or a natural human interface?
They're very happy.
Right.
Yeah.
No more daycare, just Jibo.
What does that mean? What does that mean for us?
Well, definitely we are at the
Just keep them away from NFL players, that's all. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, we're at the verge of a new era that it's, our relationship with computers is so different than we used to be 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah, you have to, don't talk to us, talk
Yeah, our relationship with computers is so different. I'm thinking on now, with, even a simple thing like maps, like Apple Maps or Google Maps. Now, we are not able to go anywhere if you don't look at a map, right? Mm-hmm. So we cannot do things that we are able to, but we can do more things, right? So it's not that human being would be different, but it would be worse, would be just different, right? So, and Jibo is just a small evolution, right? Something like, the excitement about Jibo, from my part, is that it's an open platform that with people will be able to build applications. We don't know what people build applications for, but think about 2 or 3 use cases that we build into the first version of Jibo, like taking pictures. Having a camera here that can say, hey, take a picture of me, and the camera turns and takes a picture of me, or take a picture of Mark or whatever, right? So, and turns and take a picture. Or even Skype. When I Skype with my mom and my sister in Italy, I had to take my iPhone or my iPad with me, having something that follows me around the room, and I can talk to my family while I'm preparing breakfast in the morning or things like that. So these are new things that will make our life a little bit better. Yeah.
I want to ask a question that I asked this morning, since this is a very different set of speakers, and the speakers I asked this to this morning are both gone. But I'm really intrigued. Tim, with your comment about her and the evolution of technology being so fast in a particular direction, and Liesl, with your comment about cognitive glue working across other agents, I'm wondering, over the course of today, we've heard a lot about a lot of verticals, and at some point we're going to need to interface with those verticals. I used the term APIs this morning, probably imperfectly, but I wonder if you have any thoughts on crossing the chasm of all the verticals and making sense of what's going on.
Sounds like you're trying to orchestrate a love affair between Jibo and Watson. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
He's a guy. Watson can take any form. I have a lot of opinions about gender and avatars too, if anyone wants to ask me that too.
I'm not sure I understand exactly the question. So, what is the chasm?
Can I reframe it a little bit?
Please, can you reframe
and
it? Yeah.
forgive me, Judy, I'm going to probably be totally inaccurate, but Norman Winarski and Bill Mark were on the first panel, and there was a discussion about whether there's one virtual agent that's yours, highly personal, your lens through the world, your tool, your advisor, or whether there's 5 million or whatever, and what the patterns of interaction, and Judy was calling them APIs because there's a whole discussion of whether standards are required and how is this going to talk to that. But yeah, I'm interested in
Yeah, I understand that, definitely I believe there will be a lot of agents, right?
Okay.
But I believe, and it's already happening right now, that the pattern of interaction is becoming very, think about this, like, you interact with Google saying, okay, Google, and then there is a beep, and then you say something. And that is coming up. I've seen other products where it comes, something like that comes up, that you say some wake-up phrase, and Jibo will be very similar to that. You use a wake-up. So we are learning a new skill as humans. Like, we learned many years ago to click and double-click. So that we have many
you can do that.
interaction, many different applications, but pretty much clicking and double-clicking is constant. It's something that, if we had to explain, you have to think about it. What's the difference between clicking and double-clicking? But we do it. It's second nature for all of us.
Well, and another phrase that came up this morning was, we have 5 senses, but in the Internet of Things with all these sensors, you're going to have like 5,000 input things. What's your comment on that, Mark?
Well, I mean, there's so much data, though. So you have to really make sure you filter the right data, because we're going to give you so much content. What's the appropriate content? So it's very specific for the usage, and what we're trying to figure out is, depending on the usage, should we filter it before we actually pass it through the API or the stack, or should we just give you everything? And it's a really hard kind of problem we're trying to solve, to be honest with you. So today, we're not filtering anything. We're giving everything up to a stack where the API is exposed, developers could take advantage of it, but then again, maybe in the future we want to do a lot more filtering, right? Very specific for usages. So it's early days in terms of where we are.
And Liesl was talking about the hoovering, and so there's hoovering, fusing, and interpreting, I think, that's going on with
Yeah, and I think back to the original question, there is a lot of verticalization. To my mind, it's a function of how the industry has grown up. So when I started this 8 years ago, and you go out and you say, we're building AI, and you're trying to sell a giant bank, a front-end virtual agent. We were the first on the planet to do that. And all you'd done was social media and companion characters. It's really challenging. So you have to verticalize. You had to kind of make money. Venture capitalists were going, what the hey? What are you thinking? Go back to college and go do a PhD or something. So it's just in the last sort of year or two that the spotlight's suddenly on and money's being poured at it. But the big companies like Intel and IBM and others have been grinding away with the kind of a bigger game. And they're all opening their platforms. Intel has, we are, Samsung's built a sensory layer into the Internet of Things. They're opening that up. So I feel that where it's going to head is not specific. There are going to be verticals, but I think they're going to come together. And it's going to be much more focused on, again, me as a human being. I don't want 6 different interfaces to pay 6 different bills. I don't want 10 different ways, 10 different agents I have to interact with. Even as human beings, we're hardwired as cavemen. We don't like lots of interaction points with lots of human beings. We like consistent, homogenized, comfortable relationships.
Depends on how many friends you have.
Sorry. But you look at social media, people have an average of about 12 people they hang out with most of the time.
That's right.
300 beyond which they can't remember faces. That's like a tribe.
Facebook recognizes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unless you're like my daughter, teenage girls, they have too many, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of the questions and discussion today have been about the voice interaction, and a lot of it's in English, and the U.S. being such a big market. Now, for companies, I'm from Apple, and China's such a big market for us, and there's not a lot of advancement in natural language understanding in those other kinds of languages. Where do you see that going, and how far away do you think we are?
So let me address that one since it's big for us. Intel, Apple, and IBM, everyone else are worldwide companies. So China is actually the largest PC market in the world, as you know. Very big for us, and there's a lot going on in China. If people have not been there, there's a lot of different kind of speech technologies that they've been progressing over the last probably 10 years or so. And now the accuracy rate is much, much better than it used to be. Okay, so we're seeing very high accuracy rates, like Tim was mentioning before. I mean, over the last probably 2 years, I see the same thing as a big jump from what we saw probably 2 or 3 years ago. Before we said speech assistants, virtual assistants in China, not going to work. They are working really, really well today. So we are launching something in probably a couple months that will have local support in terms of the whole Mandarin and actually 9 different dialects just in Mandarin, as well as an intelligent agent that's in the cloud. Okay, never existed before. And there was a lot of breakthroughs, not only because of the processing power, but because of the intelligence in the cloud, which made it happen. So,
Yeah,
and then all the other languages. So I think on the worldwide language thing, it's not just language support and accuracy, it's very cultural. So when you go up and looking at different domains and the intelligence, it's very difficult to understand the cultural kind of nuances. Pun kind of intended, not intended, anyway.
Yeah, so we're seeing the same thing. We benchmark in a couple dozen different languages, and English used to be the leader in accuracy 5 years ago just because the largest data sets were all in English, but for any languages where there's significant amount of smartphone usage and they're very common dialects, we're seeing accuracy rates across the board. So that includes Korean and Japanese and Arabic and obviously Western European languages.
That's a good point, that's right.
Yeah.
Even Italian.
Italian, we are Italian.
Scottish.
Scottish, right. So if you think about speech recognition, right, speech recognition is probably 60, 65 years old. Started the first paper on speech recognition in 1952. And it took a long time before we reached the point where we were. And I am impressed with, when I speak to Google Voice Search, speak to Siri, I'm really impressed by the progress that we had today. Natural language understanding is relatively new. We really didn't understand how to do it. And we started doing it like probably in the last decade. And there is a big problem with natural language understanding as compared with speech recognition. And the problem is that in speech recognition, once you understand how to do it, it really doesn't depend much on the vertical, it doesn't depend on the domain. It depends on the language, but if you collect a lot of data, you can automatically train your speech recognizer for different language. Natural language understanding depends very much on what you're talking about. Yeah. And also, even more important, something which is a subtle problem, there is a very clear measure of accuracy for speech recognition. Everyone knows what a word is, and then you count how many words are right, okay? There is nothing like that for natural language understanding. And even worse, if you go to language translation, there is nothing very clear, there's not a very clear measure of quality, right? Mm-hmm. That, you cannot create a closed loop, right? The speech recognition, all this, and that's why the progress in natural language understanding is slower, but there is a lot of progress. I agree with Mark.
Yeah.
And I have to channel Brian Garr and say, Linguists has some ideas on how you get many languages out of one. So, but we have another question here.
Okay, back to the future.
Yes.
You talked about the ability to do banking with one assistant and do multiple, do different banks, or bringing one sort of interface that gives you access to all this information. And we're talking about an Oracle type of future, and where you might ask the question and it'll figure out that you have a Winstream question, or you're trying to order pizza and deal with your question. So that's integrating a lot of information from different IP domains. So I'm thinking, I can't imagine any moral issues there, but I can imagine legal issues in dealing with integrating information from all over the world. Is that something that you foresee as a future problem for
Absolutely, and that's, as I said, exactly why I joined IBM. Integrity is baked into our DNA. And I think we're moving into a world where companies whose primary driver is ad serving are going to be dominating human lives more and more. So if it's, let's say, I know that once I hit the other side of an age I won't care to name, you start thinking more and more about what you eat, for example, and how you live your life. And I know in that sort of world, if we don't build the counterweight to that, which is human empowerment technology, in that world, if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you say, I'm feeling a bit down, I want a muffin, there'll be a drone from a nearby coffee shop dropping you a 500-calorie muffin, and the ticket will be clipped. And I don't want to live in that world. I know these things are going to be a
muffins delivered by a drone? Drone muffins? Who wants drone?
I would
Okay,
love
show
that,
of
but
hands.
is it making my life better? So what I really want is something that really intuits who I am and how the sort of matrix of service providers and companies in my life should serve my needs better as a human being.
Yes.
And I think that's important. So I want something that's going to say, get off your ass and do some more work and then go home and have a run.
No personal drones there. How are we doing?
So knowing that's the type of world that you don't want to live in, how do you overcome, though, impulse and just the impulse of human nature that some days you may actually want that muffin to be dropped and other days you don't? And I don't know how you can get a set of data that overcomes that, no matter how much you collect about me, because I may just change my mind and say, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, if you want to make it A-B, what if you're a diabetic who slips into an insulin coma once a week? And you've pretty much said to the system, no. Or you're an Italian who has a speeding fine once a week, and you want your car to be aware that you're trying not to lose your license. So I still think humans are going to be able to set the parameters, and the systems will be adaptable.
We start with the
That was a good one.
right. We start with the stereotypes, and then we refine them. This is perfect.
So yeah, I agree with the Italian part. Yeah. No, I agree that if you look at our history as human beings, things never were, nothing really disappeared. Think about bicycles and automobiles. We still use bicycles, right? Sometimes when it's appropriate to use a bicycle. Think about cinema and theater. We still go to the theater, which is a different way of it. It's much smaller than it used to be, but we like cinema, we like TV. So there is a variety of things. So the same in this total automated world. There are things that we like to do by ourselves. We want have a muffin delivered to our door because we like to walk to the store, sit down, read a newspaper, and get a coffee and get a muffin, right? It's a different thing. So we humans are very, very, we don't look like very smart, but we are, right? And, so we will, we try to do the best with our lives and the technology that we have. Yeah.
So then I've got a follow-on question. If it's about enabling what I want to do, how do you actually monetize that? Because the natural inclination is going to be ad serve, ad serve, ad serve. But if you're keeping human empowerment in the equation, how do you monetize intelligent assistance?
You look like you want to buy a muffin. Can we get a muffin delivered to over there with the drone?
My answer is we don't. I mean, did we know how to monetize search engines 15 years ago? And something came out. It was completely
Sergey did,
right? Yeah. So I mean, the answer is someone will figure it out. That's how to monetize that. Yeah, and it's probably totally different than what we may expect today. Yeah.
I think you're asking the right question, and Roberto's giving an answer. We don't know right now, but history tells us that there's transaction-based pricing, there's subscription-based. I mean, it'll find its thing.
And there's place in the world for different models. Some people want a free service and they're happy to, generate bad habits because they're getting this stuff for free. Others want, a more pure, self-centric version of things that are cleaner and, so there's different people in the world. There's different modalities that'll emerge.
And one of the reasons we focused on enterprise virtual assistants or enterprise intelligent assistants for this particular conference is that we Opus do think that it is going to be enterprise spending on infrastructure of some sort that's depending on what you count these days is either 100 million now or 3 billion already if it's the knowledge management and all that sort of stuff. and we'll all be the beneficiaries in this ideal world. So I think that brings us to the close here, which is just the beginning of the future. I want to thank the panel, because I had a lot of fun here.